Hey, my name is Yarrow Willard, and this is Papa T, Dr. Terry Willard. And today we want to talk about that herb that's going to help jog our memory.
What is it used for? I forgot.
It's something that'll help us learn about herbal medicine.
Oh, Alzheimer's. Maybe I'm getting that old already.
Dementia. It's ginkgo!
Ginkgo is one of those herbs that does absolutely so much. But before we go to what it does, we should look at its history. This herb is somewhere between 200 and 250 million years old. It's the only herb in its family. In fact, it has its own family. It's that old. Some people call it a prehistoric herb because it's that old. It's been able to take everything the planet's been able to shove at it and still survive. So it's around the world. You can't find it natively anywhere because most of the place where it lived natively that it survived was in Guangzhou or Guangdong province, which is like, one of the most populated parts of the world right now in southern China. So we don't find it in the wild, but we see some really old stuff.
Yeah, this tree grows up to 1,000 years old and can grow huge trunks in diameter. So this is just a baby.
This is a real baby. I've been around ginkgo trees in both Beijing and in Wuxi, China, that literally 4 or 5 people could not put their arms around. And they're 30, 40 meters tall. They're over 1,200 years old as individual trees. Why would they plant it in their gardens back then? Well, it had all kinds of purposes.
The Taoist belief was that it represented duality. And in that sense, it was duality coming into unity. And this biloba, now this is a pretty small tree and it's pretty young. So you see, that's about as close to biloba as we can get. But this is going to represent the 2 hemispheres of the brain, 2 sides of the heart.
Yin and yang.
The yin and yang, the duality, but in unity. And so this would be traditionally planted in a lot of the Taoist temples.
It's very famous in Chinese medicine and various things, but not used the way we use it modern days. We can't really take our modern use of it and give a long history of it.
Do you mean to say that the Chinese didn't make a 75-to-1 extract with this leaf back in the day?
No, they didn't. So really they made it as a simple tea. In fact, the leaves that we're using now is somewhere between a 50-to-1 to 75-to-1 extract. And really the reason it's such a variation is because they don't know how much of the ginkgolides or the actual flavanols that are in there, so they take the leaves and concentrate it to that. So it does have a different concentration level. So modern pharmacy, and that's what we have to call this. We can't really call it a herb. We have to say it's a natural pharmaceutical derived from herbs. But it's certainly something that I would take. What am I talking about? I've taken this for years. It's very useful for the memory. It's useful for the capillary beds. So the Chinese made it as a tea, but it's actually a little bit toxic just as a tea. They use more the nuts and the fruit.
You can still do the tea though. I mean, it has been something that's used for circulation and digestion. Now, when it comes to harvesting ginkgo, we can harvest it when the leaves are green like this, but because it's the flavonoid type groups we're looking for, often it's traditionally waited until they've gone a little yellower. So we wait till the fall and harvest those fall, autumn yellow leaves. This will make the deepest, richest tea if we're going to do it that way. To make a tea, we're going to steep it for about, 10 to 20 minutes and drink that on a regular basis. We might also mix it with other herbs like gotu kola or linden or a little bit of kind of rosemary or something to help work with that memory, circulation, brain.
Oh, rosemary with it really is nice.
So there's a lot of ways we can mix and match using this as a herb. As we're saying, you don't want to drink too much ginkgo tea on its own. It has a slight toxic effect when consumed in high volumes, just like a tea, but mixed in with other herbs is a pretty great way to work with it. Herbs with a lot of flavonoid groups like this are going to work on the densest, deepest capillary beds in the body. So it's not just ginkgo, but any of these really flavonoid-rich herbs are going to work on the brain, the heart, the eyes, the liver, the kidneys to help get better circulation and antioxidant potential into those parts of the body.
For a diabetic, this is one of the best herbs they could take, the extract that is, because it will really help protect the kidneys, especially if they're on insulin or insulin therapy or even macrophage, to be able to treat the kidneys that are sometimes overpressured. So it's a good protective herb. Flavanols at one point in time were called vitamin P, which stands for permeability factor. They really help how their permeability across the blood membranes works. And that really is where the capillary beds are.
So whoa. If I were to kind of take that one level kind of deeper, that permeability, that ability to communicate across membranes, might have a lot of other ways in which ginkgo could help us.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, it's one of the trees that's found to be able to combat pollution better than any other tree. It survived almost anything you can imagine, except for the Alberta winters. Now, we'll get into that later.
So the permeability of the leaves, right?
The permeability of the leaves, it pulls the pollution out of the air. So you go to a town or a city like Berlin, and it's all along the major boulevards or several places in Italy. It is a herb that can take the pollution of the cars really well and transmute it. So it actually transmutes the communication there, so maybe it can transmute the communication in your brain. Hey, the Taoists probably use it for alchemy just as much as they use it for their brain.
That makes sense, but are you sort of maybe hypothesizing that part of the way it works on our memory in our brain is pulling some of the pollution out of that, pulling some of the discharge and the parts that we don't necessarily need to work?
If it can do that, the pollution in somewhere like Berlin, what do you think it can do to the pollution in your body? Now, it's really important to say there is no active ingredient in here. A lot of people try to say the active ingredient, the ginkgolides, or the triterpenes in it, or the sesquiterpenes, as it might be called too, but it actually is the herb itself in a concentrated form. It's a group of flavonols, not an individual. There's a whole bunch of them in there, quercetin being one, and the other, which is a great antioxidant. So it works on so many parts of the body. Besides what we said, it's actually one of the best things for tinnitus, ringing in the ears. I often mix this with rhodiola and find out that there is no better remedy than ringing in the ears. Now, when I say that, it's only got about a 6% functional rate, but tinnitus is one of the hardest diseases to work at that I've seen in the last 40 years. But if I combine the rhodiola and the ginkgo extract, we can actually work on tinnitus to a degree.
So ginkgo has been really given like a one-stop wonder, good for the memory, good for the brain. But you know, as Terry's sort of sharing here, there's a lot of other ways in which this tree can help us kind of show up in the world and get better function and flow, better circulation, better antioxidant potential to all different parts of the body. So not only that, working with pollution in our mind, working with pollution in our environment out there, this is an old world tree that has a lot of new world uses. I think maybe one of the ways we could start to work with this plant a lot more is to just keep planting it in all these urban places and help pull out and bioremediate some of those toxins, but also to take this concentrated extract we can get out of the ginkgo and start adding that into other herbal formulas where we're working with brain, working with nervous system, working with kind of reducing down inflammation and anxiety in the body.
So this is one of those areas where the marriage between pharmacy and ancient herbology has been successful. It hasn't always been successful. So really, they tried to find the active ingredient and tried to manufacture it and found that it was way cheaper to have the plant to do it, literally. So we still have a natural product in a pharmaceutical dosage mechanism. How cool is that? So one is not better than the other always. Sometimes you blend them together. Oh, biloba, the yin and the yang.
So we want to leave you with that piece of duality coming back into unity. This is a whole part of where our society is moving, and I think old world tonic herbs like this have a really good place in new world vision for where we're trying to go in the world. So thanks for joining us, coming back into unity and embracing our duality.
Till next time.